Hello, fifth graders. Okay, here's how we're going to do part 3 of our writing crate. You are going to look in the writing crate folder and pull out the first assignment. And it says, watch Mrs. Katz and Tush on Schoology. So you'll go into Schoology and there will be a folder that is labeled Writing Crate Part 3. You'll go into that folder, you'll listen to Mrs. Katz and Tush to refresh your memory. And then step 2 says answer the question below. So here's our question. It says, how did Mrs. Katz and Larnell help each other? That is our question. And then it says, explain using details from the book, Mrs. Katz and Tush. So the first thing we have to do is say, what is this question asking me about? And I started the sentence for you. So this question is asking me about, and then I look at the question. How did Mrs. Katz and Larnell help each other? That's what I'm being asked about. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down. This question is asking me about how did Mrs. Katz and Larnell help each other? That's what I'm being asked about. Then it says, what is this question asking me to do? So this is different than part 2 of the writing crate. Because this question is asking me to, and here it is, explain using details from the book, Mrs. Katz and Tush. So that's what I'm going to write here. What is this question asking me to do? This question is asking me to explain using details from the book, Mrs. Katz and Tush. And this is just going to help me make sure I understand what am I being asked and what do I need to do. Okay, then I'm going to turn the page, and this part should look familiar to you. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to answer the question. Make sure you put your name on it. Okay, so I'm going to borrow from the question and turn it into my answer. Now, this is a how question, right? Because it says, how did Mrs. Katz and Larnell help each other? So I'm going to say, Mrs. Katz and Larnell helped each other in several ways. That's my opening sentence. Mrs. Katz and Larnell helped each other in several ways. That's my first sentence. Okay, and then I've got to use my detail sentence. Okay, so I'm going to say one way Mrs. Katz and Larnell helped each other was, and then I'm going to write out my answers. I'm not going to write out the whole thing right now, but I might say one way Mrs. Katz and Larnell helped each other was that Mrs. Katz often cooked for Larnell and gave him delicious food to eat. So that might be one way Mrs. Katz helped Larnell. Then I'm going to turn the page, and I need to give my second detail. So here I might say, another way Mrs. Katz and Larnell helped each other was Larnell kept Mrs. Katz company when she was very lonely and missing her husband who had passed away. And then I'm going to go to my conclusion, which should be green, but it looks kind of yellow on this copy. We're going to restate our main idea. So I can say it is clear or clearly. And to refresh, my main idea is that Mrs. Katz and Larnell helped each other in several ways. So here I can say, clearly Larnell and Mrs. Katz helped each other. I don't need to say in several ways again. So again, friends, we are just going to make sure we understand the question we're being asked and then write our answer in the form of a paragraph. And there are more assignments than just assignment A. So make sure you check that crate and check off each assignment as you do it. Good luck. I know you'll do great.